Welcome to Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World. We're giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. We are here on Sundays at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., Monday mornings at 1 a.m., Wednesdays at 9 a.m. And then we have that special edition at 9 a.m. on Wednesdays, which is what you're listening to right now, as well as Monday through Friday from 8 to 9 a.m. following the news. We are streaming at those times at richarddugan.com. The podcasts are up on SoundCloud, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, Stitcher, Player FM, Blueberry. We're on YouTube where you can watch these conversations. We hope that you will subscribe and click notifications so that when I do post a new conversation, you will be notified and you can enjoy the conversation, just like with the one we're going to have today. We also ask that if you can support the work we're doing financially, we would be ever so grateful for that. Every little bit helps to defray any of the expenses necessary for producing this program. And then we also ask if you could, because we do have a PayPal account, which is there for your security as well as ours, that you use the email richard@richarddugan.com. That's richard@richarddugan.com to send us that support, if you certainly can do that. We also will take energetic support as well. We appreciate that. We'll take that and use that to the best of our ability as well. And then we ask that you take some time to spend in that quiet, peaceful, calm, still place during the decade of perfect vision, the 2020s, to spend some time listening to that still, small voice and maybe even doing what we're going to talk about here on the program today, a little meditation. Some even refer to it sometimes as prayer. Just taking time out, pause. Thank you very much. And in this day and age when we're being inundated, and actually I think the truth be told that we are not being inundated. We are allowing ourselves to be inundated through the use of our devices and accessing of the internet and social media in particular. We're going to talk a little bit about that as well in reference to meditation with our very special guest, as she has been all year long here as we are now into our, ladies and gentlemen, are you ready for this? 17th year. And matter of fact, this day is the first day of our 18th year. We just celebrated it yesterday, the 7th of September. 2017 started in 2007. Did I say 2017? 2024. Sevens are running amok in my mind, Lumari. It's great to have you back again, and thank you for... I think I need to spend some time meditating.
I think so. And I like that. I think that there should be a song written, "Amok in My Mind."
Amok in my... I like that. I like that. And folks, if you know anything about horses, you will know exactly what that's referring to. But that's not where we're going. We want a demuck, okay? Which is kind of a nice way of putting it, too. By spending some time meditating. But we're going to kind of focus, in addition to all of the diverse ways in which we can meditate, how some of the frequencies we'll talk about, not just how often, how frequent we might want to consider meditating, but in terms of, and this sort of ties into your book, Lumari, Streams of Consciousness, talking about those 12 frequencies, or 12 streams. But we've been talking about frequencies throughout this year, throughout our conversations, through in discussing the books that you have written and the topics that we've talked about. So maybe we'll start at the beginning in terms of maybe defining, and again, I know everybody has their own definition, but in a general sense, what is meditation? What is it that we're supposed to do? And is there something that we're supposed to accomplish?
Oh, what a great question, Richard, and I'm so happy to be here. And the beginning of the 18th year, congratulations.
Well, thank you very much. And it's also auspicious because it is also the beginning of the publication of my book, Choices. It was just published. It is available in hardcover, hard copy, and Kindle, soon to be available in Audible, and I am looking for someone to narrate it. Oh, wait a minute, that's going to be me.
Yeah, I think so. I think so.
So let's talk about Webster's definition of meditation, or Lumari's definition.
Yeah, we'll go with Lumari's definition. And so think of meditation, because there's all different ways, all different methods, all different conversations about meditation. But think of it as being in a quiet, clear space for your greater being. So a quiet, clear space for your greater being. So in that, it means that, okay, we are very thought-produced. So it's really, we're always thinking, lots of different thoughts. And they're not necessarily in order. And you can have thoughts come to you from any different way, from any different reason. So you can be thinking about something, and then all of a sudden a bird flies by, and now you're thinking about birds, and then you go, oh, wait, I forgot I was doing this. And, like, that's how our brains are working. Now, with meditation, you go to a place that's centered so that you're really not concentrating on the thoughts at all. Your mind is more quiet. And another way of looking at it, because depending on the meditation that you do, another way of looking at it is your mind is very gently focused. So some meditations are quiet meditations, and that's an ancient process, and we can list the beautiful beings who brought us to that silent meditation, which means you are in the realm of quietude, and nothing's going on technically. Vibrationally, a whole bunch is going on, but technically there's no thoughts. And then there's guided meditations, which allow you to follow and be aligned with what the guidance is. So if you're doing a meditation that is there to bring you more joy, then everything else pushes away or floats away or disappears. And now you're being guided and following the guidance to connect with joy, because that's what the meditation is about.
Mm-hmm.
And then they go further and further out into that. But you can see that one of the purposes of meditation is to help you move beyond the erratic, everyday stuff.
Yeah. And some days it's easier than others to get past the stuff of the world. And again, in our fast-paced world, and again, our connected world, especially social media, it's like that is almost like a whole separate section of the internet from everything else. But there's a lot of it. And we tend to allow ourselves, we volunteer. When I hear people being bullied, for example, on the internet, I'm going, then delete your account. Log off. That's...
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
And I look at these things, and a couple of different things show up for me in that conversation.
Okay.
And one part of it is that, okay, I definitely understand, the disappear conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And it also really surprises me how directly mean and rude people can be. So, I don't remember that. Okay, I'm older than, obviously, teenagers. And I remember people picking on people and all that other stuff. But if I look at if I'm on Twitter or something, and I look at it and one politician says, oh, we just funded new housing for the and then you read what people say underneath it, and it's atrocious.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, yes, you made all those people poor. It's all your fault that they're dying. Like, what?
Yeah.
What? And for kids, because the younger you are, the less protected you are. And it's supposed to be like that. So as young, you're supposed to be open to explore and to discover new things and to participate and be inspired and all that. And then there's other people out there who are smacking them around with words.
Yeah.
And it's a whole way of thinking and being now. And because we have social media, you're able to get that all the way around.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's really sad about that is that people don't know. I mean, it's almost like you need to have a training on how not to absorb. I mean, actually, I do this. So not to absorb negative energy and how to get rid of it once you take it, which my meditation around personal sacred space actually helps you get rid of all that stuff that you absorb.
Yeah.
But the fact that it's there so loud. Now, I'm going to say something that's even more controversial about that, and that is it's so loud because all of the people who are doing that are afraid that we're moving into a higher consciousness that isn't going to be influenced by them at all.
And that is usually the motivator for a lot of what goes on in our world when it comes to this aspect, shall we say, of manipulation, and that's fear.
Yeah.
Fear is the core element that drives almost everything that is contrary to what this program is about, what you are about, and many others, and that is that we want to raise the consciousness. We want to live a different way that works not just for us, but for everyone.
Yeah.
And we're not talking utopia here. It is possible. And I'll use education as the prime example. Let me rephrase that. I'll use a classroom where you have, let's just say, 30 students. And each one of those students is a little different.
Yep.
Well, in the 21st century, we have programs that will help to support the educational process of each individual student and their, I'm going to use the word, uniqueness. I grew up legally blind. I had a resource teacher. And during one period, I don't know if it was 2 or 3 times a week, I would meet with her, maybe in the library, maybe in a classroom that wasn't being used, with my textbooks, those big print things. Mm-hmm. And I would work on my homework, and she would assist me. She would never give me the answers, but she would help me to work through, for example, certain processes, and English, and whatever the coursework was. So now today, because we have so many different unique characteristics, and I for example, Down syndrome, autism, hearing impaired, physical, maybe a paraplegic, a quadriplegic, etc., and the list goes on. And there are programs that are there in place now to facilitate that student's learning process.
Well, and the thing that's so beautiful about that, what we have available to us now, when we look at the, I'll just say, the human structure, right, is that we're in a place where there's so much more understanding about who people are and how we're all different, and yet we're all related. Mm-hmm. And so there's many different ways to learn, many different ways to grow, and the systems that we have actually have embraced a lot of it. Now, we know there's whole conversations out there that are saying, no, you just only do this. We know that that's there. But that's the fear factor. we're talking about the expansion factor and how many different things are in the school systems where you can look at it and you can pass a course even though you don't necessarily learn it the same way someone else does. Now, when I was in college, and something about me is I don't memorize stuff. It's just not a thing. Just doesn't stay in. I rewrite it every time I memorize it, so it doesn't work. And when I was in my art history class, I actually went to my teacher and I said, I can't do tests, so what can we do? Because I couldn't memorize the artist did this at this date. And when is the Renaissance? Who knows, right? It just wouldn't sink in. She gave me things to do. She said, okay, you can't do the test, write a paper. This is the theme. And I did, and I passed. Now, that's adapting to what was me. That was more unusual in those days. It's not unusual now. And to move into the higher frequencies of where we're going, where our world is moving to, using meditation as an example, one of the things that you're embracing in meditation is you are embracing your own individual soul being, and you are embracing what I'm going to call today the universal all. You're creating a space where you're in both, and you're allowed to relax into it and move into different levels of who you are and what the higher frequencies are that support you.
I know that as we have conversed over this year in particular,
You and me talking?
you and me talking, it has become clear to me that even if we don't set up, and again we've kind of gone off on that particular line for the reason of getting back to this line of meditation, that it is important that we that we take that time to go into that meditative state.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I have learned is that there is no, shall we say, a protocol or set of standards in that regard, that you can use many activities as a meditation. I think that I do that when I'm doing the dishes, or I'm out chopping the wood, getting ready for the winter season, or whatever it is that I'm doing around the place. And sometimes even when I am in the middle of doing production, I'm doing editing of audio and so forth for a commercial or a program and so forth, that I get into that zone where that stuff that we were talking about before, and I've actually done my best to be consciously aware, where'd that stuff go? I'm sitting here and I'm cutting and pasting and blah, 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 blah. And I'm not thinking about that stuff. And those can be meditative moments, as well as finding a quiet place, maybe to sit in whatever posture is comfortable, close one's eyes, maybe have some sounds, some music, maybe the sound of bells or bowls, those kinds of things. And maybe have a thought in mind or a question. Okay, my friend, where am I supposed to go next? What's next on the agenda? Where, just kind of keep putting almost like a mantra.
Well, I would say that what you're talking about, those activities, I would describe it differently. So I would not call that a meditative space.
Okay.
I would call that a quiet focus.
Okay.
All right? Completely different than what we're talking about. So what you're doing, and you can go into a quiet focus doing many different things.
Right.
I mean, I know runners who do that. I actually have trained cyclists to be able to be in that kind of space when they're racing. those big cycle races. I can't remember what they call them. Anyway,
Yeah.
And I've trained other people to use some of the activities that they use as a focus when they're doing it by themselves. Obviously, you don't do it when you're doing it with someone else because you have to be aware. But I'm calling that a focus instead because you are still doing something else and your mind is now in a different inner quiet focus. That's not the same thing as going into a meditation. Now, that doesn't mean that you don't get fabulous results and feel much more in harmony with yourself when you do that. It does. And now if we move it to meditation and conversation about meditation, that is much more conscious inner work and participation with the higher frequencies that you're moving into. And again, I'm describing just two types of meditation. There's plenty more. But when you talk about one is complete silent meditation, which means you go in to the deep, beautiful space of your soul and connect to the higher energies. I'm calling it the universal all. You can call it whatever you like. And you allow your whole being and thought process and everything to just move away. And there are no thoughts. And you're not doing anything. But you and the universe are conversing, and it's much more frequency-oriented. So in that quiet, silent meditation, you're not asking any questions. You're not having any conversations. You're not waiting for messages or anything else. You're just being in that space. It has a very ancient tradition in our world, and there's very different cultures that have that, and beautiful guides and masters that train many people and organizations that train many people in that way of being in meditation. And it's silent. So there isn't even music in the background. You're really in a place of silence. And then we can move to another level, which is, let's just say you're listening to quiet meditative music. And that can be 5 minutes or 20 minutes or an hour or whatever it is. And meditative music does not have lyrics. It doesn't have a tempo, so you're not tapping your feet while you're trying to move into that quiet space of being.
Mm-hmm.
And you allow yourself to be carried, I'm going to use that word, be carried by the music, receive the energy of the music, but what you're really doing is you're still moving into that quiet place. Just the music allows you to move into different melodic energy that is in a higher frequency that calms you down and expands your energy. And so that is something that also is something that you can do. Now, again, meditation you don't do while you're doing something else. You devote the time, whatever the time is, to the meditation. And so that's one aspect when you're listening to the music. And then another one I'm sharing about is guided meditations. And those meditations have a theme, which is a quality, which is an energy, can be perceived as an emotion, and it can be perceived as higher frequencies as well. And that brings you into an awareness of what is being talked about and what you're guided into. So if you're doing a meditation that brings you into a level of peace, then the conversation and the guidance is going to be how to calm down, how to release the distractions, how to move more into peace within your own being, how to be in this calm energy and receive the energy of peace. Mm. And it's going to be longer than what I just said. But even anybody listening is going to be able to sense that level of peace that we just talked about. But you see, it's not, even though your mind is being guided, so is your energy and your being. You are moving into a higher frequency and being guided by someone who's helping you move into the frequency and the theme and the energies and the emotions and the teachings of that meditation theme that you chose to listen to.
And you have a meditation that you are making available to our listeners that is available through lumari.com/sacred space. Sacred Space. It's a sacred space meditation that people can download. And we encourage you to go to her website. Again, it is lumari.com/sacred space. And this will this will guide you because it is a guided meditation, correct?
Yes, it is.
All right.
And it guides you to be, I call it personal sacred space, because what it does for you, it allows you to move and to experience your own personal being as a sacred space.
Mm.
So you are the space for the sacred in you.
Mm.
Now, that means, like, if you think of sacred space, right? I mean, this is how it came to me also, because when I started creating these kind of meditations, people were not describing it this way. But it's like if you look at, your personal altar in your house, if you look at those things in religious places, if you go to sacred sites where you go to, whichever one you can think of at the moment, Machu Picchu or whatever, right?
Right.
The whole thing is a sacred space that you are walking into. And so for me to create this meditation, I'm saying you are that sacred space. You don't have to go anywhere to feel that the sacred within you. And with this meditation, you release the distractions. You release the thoughts that are, annoying you. You release the energies that you might have absorbed because you were with people who were annoying, or you listened to something that got you really annoyed. I like the word annoyed as opposed to all the other ones that will come to mind for sure. And you release all of those, and then you come into that sacred space of your own being. And most meditations don't even get you there anyway. And I created this so that you could, and everybody listening could, listen to this meditation, move into a personal sacred space, and then whatever else you wanted to do next, you're centered. You have no more inner debris that you absorbed arbitrarily, and now you can create what you want to create from that. And it's a meditation that, my clients and community, I've had people tell me that they do it several times a day. They wake up and they do it so that they create what their day is going to look like. And they go to sleep where they release everything so that they can have a calm space. But I've also had clients tell me after meetings with people in their firms and their, businesses, then they go in their office, they close the door, and they put the headphones on and they listen to the sacred space because they got to get rid of some of the arguments that people had. So it's a way of moving into that place, and that's the gift that meditations really are.
We're talking with Lumari of lumari.com. I am your congenial moderator, so to speak, host of Tell Me Your Story. I wanted to ask you in regards to, and I love that last image of the CEO going into his office or her office, closing the door, putting the headphones on, and zoning out to the meditation so as to clear all of the stuff that they had just been bombarded with back in the conference room during that high level, high tension meeting that they really wish had gone a different direction. But I would think that going through that meditation will probably allow them to recenter, refocus, go back, if there's a continuation of that or maybe another meeting, and say, okay, here are my thoughts. All right? And blah, 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 blah. But I wanted to dive into another area in regards to meditation, because you talked about this in terms of the mind.
Mm-hmm.
And I've shared this before that when I first started hearing about meditation, you needed to quiet the mind. You needed to shut it off so that it wouldn't bother you. Whatever thoughts come, just let them pass on through, and so on and so forth. and I thought, well, okay, I understand, but the mind is a very important part of who and what we are. Not the most important,
Right.
but it is an important part. And I thought, well, okay, on the one hand, I thought, well, what if you had made an agreement with the mind? Hey, look, I want to go over here to meditate, okay? So if you wouldn't mind just kind of keeping the volume turned down a little bit so that I can do that, and I'll come back. And I'll come back with some new and exciting stuff that we can do together. Then one of my guests offered this addendum to that, which I actually liked a lot better than the making the agreement with the mind, which I don't think is a bad one, but I like the next level here, and that is because the mind is like a child, and a child does not like to be left alone if they're enjoying the company with whom they're with the condition that the mind stays quiet. Hey, why don't you come along? Come with me. If you sit quietly, you can come with me, and you can hear all the cool stuff that we're going to be able to do, all the neat things that the universe has to offer, and so forth. And I just thought, why not? I mean, it's not. I know some of us have difficulty sleeping sometimes because we want to roll over on our side, and the given arm that's on that side is in the way from laying flat or being comfortable. And you have to lay on your back, and you don't want to do that for whatever reasons. Well, you can't remove any more than you can remove your arm. You can't disconnect the mind. So why not embrace the mind? Have you ever heard of that kind of a technique?
Well, I really love that because I actually I have agreements with my mind all the time. And you know that I channel a variety of different beings. So I listen to guidance from all over the place. And when I'm working with clients, we can laugh. My joke is they're sitting with me on my couch. Even though they're in other dimensions, they're all on my couch. And it could be, somebody's grandmother talking to them, and, some divine being who wants to give them guidance, etc. It can be a whole bunch of different things. And my agreement with them is that first and foremost, they have to ask me if they can speak. And this is relating to what you're talking about. And then it has to be something, if they want to talk and share wisdom, it has to be something that's really relevant. And so while you're talking about having the mind, I'm going to say, because I don't like the thought of silencing my mind, but relaxing my mind.
Okay.
So that it isn't... See, our thoughts come to our minds all the time because it gives attention, and there's so many different things you can think about, and there's all these different things that the inner conversation wants to reveal. Now, if it's relaxed, and you say, okay, like, I'm going to be in this beautiful silent zone, you can interrupt if it's important, or if there's an insight that you really want to share that we're having. And otherwise, after the meditation, we'll have a conversation about, what was there. So I have this kind of agreement with myself, because obviously I'm saying my mind, but that's part of me, right? We're just separating it from the conversation. And so it's very similar to saying to the child's mind, just listen, but you can play, you can be with us. It's a similar way of having the conversation. And just for me, I'm structuring it in a way that if there's something that wants to be shared, I have a way you can share that with me. So I don't feel like shutting anything off is, you want to know if your thoughts all of a sudden in this beautiful quiet space of being, this huge awakening happens. You don't want to tell it not to awaken you. You know, if there's a huge insight that you've never realized before and it's present, you don't want to say, hey, I'm in meditation. You wait. I'll get back to you later.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you don't want to play there. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, it does. And I think it helps the mind to feel integrated.
Yes.
Because in reality, there is no separation. There is no compartmentalization.
Exactly.
I mean, we often say, hey, we have the body, the mind, the soul, the emotions. All right. Those are just designations of, yes, the parts, but the parts are intertwined.
Exactly.
What is that phrase? The sum is greater than the total of the parts, or the parts are something like that.
Yeah, no, that was good enough. Yeah, well, and see, it's important because we have been trained to look at and actually we've been trained to value certain things above other things. You know, as a psychic, intuitive channel, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The gifts I have are just now in this world finally being recognized and appreciated. Because if you had these thoughts that and messages and all this other stuff 50 years ago, it would freak people out. And they would tell you, no, don't be emotional. Whatever you're saying is really not so. Just think. And now you know that the thought was the most valued part. Except it's not true. We want all of it integrated. We want to be able to get the messages of guidance from myself and my clients. I want to be able to have brilliant thoughts and interact with my mind in a way that isn't just think this, think this, think this. I want to be able to embrace my emotions and discover what they mean and where they're guiding me, and all the beautiful frequencies that we have access to, and move into those. We want to be able to have the whole experience of being a light being human, not following, well, I'm not really good at following those kind of patterns anyway, but,
Yeah.
I mean, I was giving psychic advice to my friends when they were in third grade, so.
But you, of course, didn't call it that necessarily. You just gave.
I didn't know it was.
Yeah, you just
I
gave
didn't know
the
it was.
advice.
And they used to say, "Thank you, teacher." They used to say to me. Now I think it's so adorable. But when I looked at them then, I'm like, "Teacher, what do you mean, teacher? I'm just telling you, don't do that. Your mother's going to punish you. Stop."
Yeah.
And of course, they did it, and their mother punished them, and then they came back to me and went, "How did you know?"
Well,
Like, I don't know. It's obvious to me. Obviously, now I know all those things.
yeah.
But if we don't integrate all of those parts of ourselves, we're also missing out on who we are.
Oh, yeah. And that place of meditation is a place where we can find out who we are, which is so, I don't know that I should say critically important, but it certainly is significant in that, for example,
Oh, yes, call it highly significant.
highly significant. I have a vehicle that I am driving. Bought it a little over a year and a half, a little less than a year and a half ago. All right? Now, I had bought a vehicle from the same place 3 or 4 years earlier, and it came with a manual that helped me to understand the vehicle and how it operates. The current vehicle that I have didn't, and I asked for one, and all they did was sent me to a place where I had to pay $85 even for a PDF version. But I
Oh, man.
I find that to have, quote unquote, a manual and some instructions on the different components would really be great to be able to better understand how this vehicle operates. Well, I would like to have that too on how this vehicle that is speaking now operates on all of those different levels, in all of those different parts that are integrated, because they're so integrated that one can affect the other. And it seems to me like meditation that's where, if you will, that's where the instructions are, if you will, the manual.
Well, you could actually call it a unifying force within yourself. So that, because the other thing to note for all of us is some people are more aligned with their emotions than they are with their thoughts, or they're more aligned with their physical body than they are with their emotions, or any of those things that we choose, right?
Right.
It's a little bit more, I mean, we could call it dominant, but it's really like more upfront.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there are people with brilliant minds, and they're not paying attention to what they feel in the moment because the thoughts are so incredible that they're just playing there.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, like, you know, and we have all of these different aspects. And having a meditation unifies that because we're having all of those be relatively quiet, meaning they're present and they're there, but they're not calling for our attention unless we need to, pay attention, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're in another space that embraces all of them, and yet we're very quiet in the middle of it, so that nothing is calling our attention away from being in the moment, having that energy and that space and that clarity just to be. And we don't have a lot of that in our world. And really and truly, we didn't have it before either. I mean, you can go back beyond the pyramids. They still were working. They still were doing things. So it's not like they had, 6 hours a day just to meditate. That wasn't what was going on.
Right.
That wasn't what humanity has experienced. Unless we go so far back that I don't even know the dates. But anyway, so we haven't had that, but now we can create that for ourselves.
Mm.
And the beauty of that is that you can see and know that that's really possible. It's an amazing gift for yourself. It relaxes your whole mind, body, spirit, emotions, etc., and it gives you a place that is calm and is allowing you to just be. There isn't anything you need to do. There aren't any calls you need to make. You don't have to figure anything out. You don't have to plan for 5 months in advance. None of that is there. It's this beautiful, quiet space. And everybody's quiet space is different. And even if you're listening to chant music, because we talked about like meditation music, which is quiet instrumental music, right? Even the chants move you into a space of quietness. The chant allows your brain to think something without thinking anything. And you move into the frequency of the chant. And we know there's chant music around. I'm sure everybody who's listening to this radio program knows what chant music is about, has heard it before, and it brings you into a space.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we are so lucky to have all of this here. Even with the bombardment that's there, we can go into that meditation space, connecting with the universal all, and call it our sacred vacation.
Yeah, I like that. One of the other aspects, and you're talking about chanting, of course, what came to my mind almost immediately, and I know they're all different kinds of chanting, there was a CD that came out some years ago of, I think it was Gregorian chant. It was these brothers that sang in a cathedral or a large, highly acoustic place, and it was so magnificent to listen to. Now, granted, it had lyrics, but they were not necessarily in English. Okay.
Well, chants have lyrics. That's what
right,
they are.
exactly. There is another video that, again, this would not necessarily be used for meditation, okay? But the vibration in this piece of music performed by these gentlemen, I've heard it maybe a dozen times, and I never really I don't listen to it over and over again, but every time I hear it, it's like I never get tired of hearing it. And it's called Hoist the Colors High. And it's done in, all the parts are bass. And they do it, but it's also in harmony. And it is absolutely mesmerizing, the vibration that I hear coming through. And it is not necessarily about the story that's being told, but about the sound. And Jonathan Goldman talks about that all the time.
Exactly. And he does beautiful meditation music and meditation.
Yeah.
And then if you go and you listen to things that are more cultural, well, the Native Americans have chants. And they have obviously, we know we have the music that they dance to.
Right.
But they also have music that they sing in a circle, and they chant it over and over again, and brings them to a higher place, centered within their being, connecting in the community, connecting with the chant and the frequencies there as well. These things are things for us to use and embrace now, and really more than ever, because in those frequencies and those energies, we are really moving to higher dimensions and higher awareness in this world. And the distractions, what's interesting about it, it's almost like I could say to you, don't listen to anything that's louder than you are.
Okay.
I don't know why that came to me, all right? But like when we're looking at, the conversations that are on social media, the conversations that are on the news, because the news isn't the same as it was way back in the day where they actually track the thoughts as opposed to sharing gossip
right.
to get clicks. But like if all of that is louder than you, then that's not for you to listen to. If it is disturbing you, that's not for you to listen to. The only thing, and I'll say this as a spiritual person giving you a disclaimer, if you receive an inner message, some people call it a gut feeling, because you get it there, but it could be anywhere in your being. If you get a message from the divine that says run like hell, do that. If you get a message from the divine that says stop now, do that. But all this other stuff that's there, that's debris.
Yeah.
And energetically, we end up having to listen to it and then duck it and everything else. If it's louder than your own thoughts and beings, it's not for you. Aside from those warnings, which is also, another warning is go, right?
Yeah.
And I'm just saying loud messages. I'm not saying simply alarming ones, but the ones that we're responding to right now in the world, or many people are, is the alarm buttons.
Yeah.
And I'm saying that's louder than your thinking, and it's louder than your being. And so, of course, you already know this because California's had some pretty crazy weather and stuff going on. If your body and your being says, get in the car and leave, you're going to do that because you're getting a specific message. That's completely different than being bombarded by all of these weird conversations that are distracting you from your own being, your own joy, your own purpose, the connection with other people, and creating the change that we want to see in the world. And that's just another beautiful thing with meditation. It's like you go into that quiet space, whatever that quiet space is for you.
Exactly.
For me, I have tons of them.
Right.
So I have the music and chants that I've recorded. That is my music. I listen to my own meditations. I listen to other, quiet music. My husband Peter creates meditation music and other music. I listen to other people's meditation music, and then obviously there's times I just shut everything off and smile.
Yeah.
Because I have to meditate smiling. That's my thing.
Ah. Well,
because when you smile, it actually creates a frequency in your whole body and mind.
And that takes me to this next element, and we only have a couple of minutes left, so we may have to carry this over. But that has to do with when you are meditating, if you may not have a vibration, a frequency that you're listening, that your conscious ears are hearing, okay, you could create your own by letting your intuition, by letting the higher self generate that through your vocal cords. And I know that that kind of thing can go a long way, because oh my gosh, I'm creating this. It's self-made and it's exclusively, uniquely for me and me alone.
Exactly.
And that's really kind of cool. It really is.
Beautiful. And you want everybody who's listening, I'm going to say embrace everything that we've talked about, and then see what feels fun for you.
Exactly.
Because a lot of people teach that meditation, and they teach discipline and all of these other things, and all of that's real. And if it doesn't inspire you and it doesn't feel fun, you're going to ignore it. And then you won't get the benefits of something that is so personal and so clear and relatively easy. We're not talking like you have to go to Mount Vesuvius to find your true self. We're saying take a deep breath. Move to that beautiful space of your being.
Yeah. Well,
and of course, get my my sacred space meditation.
Absolutely. Lumari.com/sacred space. That's the meditation that you can download. And Lumari, we only have about a minute or so left to have you wrap things up on this conversation about meditation and those frequencies that can assist us and facilitate a better, a higher connection to self.
So, everybody, thank you so much for being here, listening to our beautiful conversation. And really, today, just take a deep breath and smile. Close your eyes, take a deep breath, and smile, and tune into what that feels like. No thoughts, no writing, just a deep breath and smile, and you'll feel the frequencies of joy move through your whole body and being.
I want to thank you again for joining us here, and we look forward to talking with you next week on another topic that we will bring to the table.
Wonderful. Oh, thank you so much, Richard. It's an honor, a joy. Thank you.
And I thank you folks for listening to and watching Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World. We're giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. And until our next broadcast, podcast, videocast, love to Lal. Jeanette, I am still listening. Dad, continue to be happy because I am. Smokey, I'll see you on the other side. And to my dear friend Zorro, aho, aho.